Good evening to all of you.
Good evening.
I'm delighted that for the third year in succession, I have the platform of Manthan to launch my book in the city of Hyderabad. I can't think of a more eclectic audience. This is not a club. This is not a trade union. This is not a chamber of commerce. This is not a political body. This is not a college. Yet, everyone who is a member of one of these organizations is represented here. Why do I write? Well, the simple answer is I have nothing better to do. But unfortunately, I do a number of things. I practice law. My passion is the economic progress of this country. And my chosen instrument is politics. I think it's important to remember what is this country about. Budget is not a statement of income and expenditure. If it was, then Price Waterhouse and Cooper can write the budget. It is not. It is essentially a political document expressed in purportedly economic terms. It is for India. You can't write a budget that fits every country. And when you write a budget speech and put the numbers together, you must always remember what is the context in which you're writing. My context is, our context should be people. I've just come from a lecture at Nalsar. I found how within India, so many different worlds coexist and one doesn't seem to know the other. It's like the walled colonies of Delhi, which is spreading to the rest of India. Behind those walls, you only see yourself. People like us. And you think the world outside the wall is exactly similar to the world that you find inside the wall. Either you don't see the other world, or you turn your face away. Let me just give you a couple of stray statistics which will tell you what I want to drive at. We all have children, we all have grandchildren. We know what it is to feed a child. We know what it is when a child is deprived of food, even for one meal. And we know when a child falls ill. I'm going to give you statistics which will shock anyone. This is not an indictment of any government, certainly not the present government. This is an indictment of all governments, including mine. 1 out of 2 children in India is anemic. The child you see is a non-anemic child, but there is another child which is anemic. We don't see it. Or we see it and pretend it's not there. 1 out of 3 children is stunted. height for age and height for weight, the child is stunted. 1 out of 5 children is wasted. Please go back and Google the word wasted in your medical dictionary. What is wasted? Wasted means that child did not have adequate nutrition between birth and 5 years of age, and therefore, forever, as long as that child lives, its mental and physical development will be below par. It will never be a full adult. 1 out of 5 children in India is wasted. This is despite the fact that every year our output of grain is growing. This is despite the fact we have a public distribution system. This is despite the fact we have a National Food Security Act. Let's look at another aspect. I met a bunch of bright kids in Nalsar. The school must have very bright kids. But the average 5th standard student in rural India and in some urban pockets cannot read a 2nd standard text. A 5th standard student cannot tell the time looking at the clock. Half the 8th standard class cannot do a simple division. I can multiply examples in every field. Take, for example, what Mr. Arvind Subramaniam, who was your guest last week, wrote in his economic survey. He said, in the last 4 years, real agricultural output and real agricultural income have remained stagnant. That's the economist's way of saying a very blunt truth. A very blunt truth is, there is the farm sector, there is the non-farm sector. The output of the farm sector is X, the output of the non-farm sector is Y. Relative to the non-farm sector, the value of the output of the farm sector in constant terms has remained stagnant. Relative to the non-farm income, the farm income in constant terms has remained stagnant over 4 years, which means, in simple language, the farmers have become relatively poorer. The farm sector in India is relatively poorer, the farmer's income is relatively less, and the farmer is relatively poorer. So the already poor farmer has become relatively poorer. Go back and read that Piketty essay. Inequality is growing in this country, but no more, no greater than the inequality growing between the farm sector and the non-farm sector. And the farm sector is the main means of livelihood for about 55% of India's population in one way or other. So these are hard facts which one must keep in mind while taking pen and starting writing the first lines of the budget. India must always, the Indian government must always lean in favor of the poor. You can call it by whatever name you like. Call it socialism, call it communism, call it populism, call it vote bank politics, call it by any damn name. Indian government must always lean in favor of the poor. The middle class and the rich will be taken care of, but if you want to know how the government leans, it must always be in favor of the poor. It may not be forever, but today it has to lean in favor of the poor. The budget that was presented 25 days ago failed India in that behalf. It failed the poor of India, it failed the farmers of India, it failed the youth of India, it failed on the test of promoting social welfare, namely health and education. It failed the test of fiscal consolidation. And that's why there's all-round condemnation of the budget. Don't go by what the chambers of commerce say. I think they have a standard statement. They change the year and the name of the finance minister and issue it after the budget is presented. I've seen it for 20 years and I'm not moved one way or other when I read that statement. I know what they will say tomorrow. The story that I like to say is about a month ago, the Prime Minister addressed the PhD Chamber of Commerce in Delhi and he said, NPA is a big scam in banks. Banks were looted to give money to industrialists like you. It's a big scam. And the audience applauded him. It's a Pavlovian response. The reality is, how does it hurt the poor? How does it help the poor? I'm not saying the middle class should be ignored. I'm not saying the productive classes should not be encouraged. I'm not saying space research and mission to Mars should not be provided money. I'm not saying all that. But ultimately, in the context in which India is placed today, given the fact that we have grown between 2004 and 2014, India's GDP grew 3 times in dollar terms, tripled in dollar terms. In rupee terms, it increased 4 times, quadrupled in 4 times. And the Prime Minister said yesterday, in the 4 years of his government, the GDP has doubled. I have to check that figure, but I'll accept it. So India is growing. But although India is growing, there are still poor in this country. And ultimately, the pen must bend in favor of supporting the poor. And that is the budget, that is the political statement the budget must make. When I'm in government, I try to help. When I'm not in government, again I try to help by writing. Of course, the government of the day thinks that I'm trying to hinder them by writing. But the fact is, in a democracy, the only way you can help your government is to criticize your government. Praise your government and you're failing your government. Criticize your government, you're helping your government. A society which doesn't criticize its government, a media which doesn't criticize its government, a judiciary that doesn't find fault with the government is not a help to the government. In fact, it is doing a great disservice to the government. I therefore write because I think this is my way, sitting in the opposition, to help the government. I write on subjects that are contemporary at any given time or relevant. But there is no dearth of subjects under this government. If the government doesn't provide me a topic, the Nirav Modis and Mehul Chokshis provide subjects. But what I've gathered over 2017 is a few simple truths. One, what Arvind Subramaniam may have told you, for the first time, India's economy seems to have decoupled from the world's economy. I don't know if he used that word when he spoke to you. For the first time, as much as I can recall, when the world economy is growing, India's economy is declined in terms of growth rate. We are growing, but growing at a slower rate when the world economy is picking up speed. So we have decoupled from the world's economy, which is not a good sign. Secondly, government was very late in realizing that there was a decline in growth rate. We noticed it in the middle of 2016. Government did not acknowledge it until the end of 2017. And 6 quarters had passed before the government even acknowledged that there was a decline in the growth rate. Government was whistling in the dark. The third thing that I realized is that in 2017, government had become more intolerant, especially intolerant of criticism. As a result of which, voices that are truly independent voices went unheeded. Voices such as Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, Dr. Ashok Gulati, Mr. Pratap Banu Gupta, these voices went unheeded. If you don't heed the voices, if you don't listen to these voices, nobody around you is going to tell you that things are going wrong. The proverb in Tamil is, if somebody tells you, I saw a white crow, the king says, I saw a white crow flying. The minister will say, no sir, there are 2 white crows flying. Therefore, you have to heed the voices outside the system. Only those voices, of course there are biased voices, I'm not saying there are no biased voices, but ignore the biased voices. Heed the voices of truly independent people who, believe me, although they may not be in government, are as passionate, as concerned about the country as you are. I'm not questioning the motives of the Prime Minister or any of his ministers. I'm sure they are passionate about India's growth, India's development, but there are others who are equally passionate about India's growth, India's development. So that is why I write. And I've written in this 54 weeks of 2017, including a special column, I've written on a variety of subjects ranging from demonetization, which was a subject that gave us enough substance for 3 or 4 weeks. Then the GST, which gave us more material for several weeks. Then, of course, the budget itself. The Gujarat election, which gave me a lot of opportunities to write on. And naturally the politics, which was punctuated by elections in Bihar and Gujarat. Therefore, there was enough material to write about. And if you read the book, and I want to give you a hint about how this book should be read. The articles were written week after week, but then they were aggregated under subjects. So when you read a subject, my request is read all the columns in that subject. They are arranged in chronological order. Now that's the only way you can make sense of the subject, because they were written at different times. I think on demonetization, ultimately I proved right. It's not a boast. It's just a claim that I saw through the hoax within hours of demonetization. There was currency in circulation was 17,70,000 crore on November 7, 2016. Currency in circulation last week was 17,70,000 crore. So there's a proverb in Hindi, Koda Pahad Chua na Nikli Chua. Why did you move a mountain? To do what? You moved a mountain to catch a mouse. I said every one of the objectives set out by the Prime Minister in his address at 8 p.m. that night was wrong. It will not eliminate black money. It will not eliminate fake currency. It will not eliminate corruption. Black money continues to be generated. You must have seen it in the Hyderabad municipal elections. You can see it in every election. You can see it in Nirav Modi's second account book. And in fake currency, finally, they said 400 crores of fake currency. In 17 lakh crore, what is 400 crore? And corruption, the first case of corruption after demonetization was in the Gujarat Port Trust, where 2 engineers were caught with brand new 2,000 rupee notes as bribes. In fact, both the giver and taker of money found it more convenient. If he had to carry a full briefcase of 1,000 rupee notes, now he has to carry only a half briefcase of 2,000 rupee notes. None of these objectives were true on day one, they were not true today. It immiserized the poor. Small micro industries were virtually wiped out. Employment was hit. And more than anything else, the daily worker, both on the farm and off the farm, was immiserized for about 6 weeks to 8 weeks. Many families were driven into deep debt and they have not come out. For 6 to 8 weeks, my calculation was about 30 crore people were put to untold misery. And for about 4 to 5 weeks, 11 crore people stood in queues outside ATMs and bank branches every day. 11 crore people stood outside the branches. Anyway, that's done and dusted, it's over, it's behind us. 100 economists signed saying, why did you do it? And the Prime Minister's Advisory Council, the economist from Harvard, Rupa Purushothaman, has said that she has not come across any economist anywhere in her travels who thought there was one good thing about demonetization. Then I wrote on the elections, both Bihar and Gujarat. There were 2 contrasting pictures. Bihar proved that a Mahagathbandhan can defeat the BJP, which was a pretty obvious lesson. That a Mahagathbandhan cannot defeat the BJP is something which I don't think even the BJP believes in. A Mahagathbandhan can defeat the BJP. Now, I'm not making any value judgment. Whether the BJP should be defeated or not is a different issue. But if you think the BJP should be defeated, a Mahagathbandhan can defeat the BJP. Which was a valuable lesson. But a valuable lesson which the Mahagathbandhan learnt and forgot, but the BJP learnt and remembered. They broke the Mahagathbandhan. So in fact, the Bihar lesson was learnt correctly by the BJP and remembered it. Those who provided the lesson forgot the lesson. It's like the teacher forgets the lesson and the student remembers the lesson. But Gujarat taught us a different lesson. Gujarat taught us a lesson that You don't need a Mahagathbandhan of political parties. If a political party can stoop to conquer, if a political party can accommodate non-political forces, it is still possible to bring the BJP close to defeat. 99 seats was not a victory. I don't think even the BJP thinks it's a victory. They started with 150. We have done some analytics of the voting. In 12 polling booths, just 12 out of about 50,000 odd polling booths of Gujarat, if in 12 polling booths the Congress candidate had got the same votes in 2017 as the Congress candidate got in the parliamentary election of 2014, where the Congress lost all the seats. Even if he had got that vote in 12 polling booths, the BJP would have lost the government. Just in 12 polling booths. We are not going back to a past vote. 2014, BJP swept all parliamentary seats. Congress lost all parliamentary seats. In these 12 booths, if we had kept the votes that we got 2 years ago, the BJP would have lost the election in Gujarat. So that close it was. It was that close. So which gives rise to an interesting thought, which political analysts must reflect on it. What is the role of non-political parties, non-political movements, non-political organizations? It seems to me that in future elections, it's possible that non-political movements may decide the election. Now, superficially, you can dismiss Hardik Patel, Alpesh Thakur and Jignesh Mevani as caste leaders. But that's very superficial. They are not caste leaders. Caste is an easy vehicle in which you can mobilize people. But people won't mobilize only on the grounds of caste, unless there is some hunger in the stomach which drives them to come. That hunger, Gujarat proved, is joblessness. Unemployment is the hunger that drives the youth today. It's assuming alarming proportions. It's a volcano waiting to burst. And unless government and society find a way in which young people can be found jobs, I'm afraid the future is bleak. And when I talk about jobs, please remember the kind of jobs we have to find in India. We have to find jobs for about 17% of the school leaving class which goes to college. Only 17% goes to college. 83% don't go to college. They drop out at class 12. Many of them drop out at class 10. 50% drops out at class 8. And among the 50%, a significant number drops out at class 5. Therefore, we have to find jobs for drops out of class 5, dropouts of class 8, dropouts of class 10, dropouts of class 12, and the BA pass, which according to me is as good as a dropout. What is a BA pass? Yet we give out these BA pass degrees. For what? All that it means is he's passed through the corridors of the college. And we have to find jobs for the PhD in astrophysics. It's a very enormous challenge. India has to find jobs for all these kinds of people. We have to find jobs for the very unskilled, to the semi-skilled, to the skilled, to the highly skilled, and to the innovative people. It's not an easy task. And what is a job? A job as defined by the ILO is something which is regular, certain, and reasonably secure. That doesn't fit in with frying pakoras. And when you tell young people, even frying pakoras is employment, they feel insulted. And they should be insulted. Go tell a doctor or an IAS officer who says, my son is looking for a job. What has he studied? Well, he has studied MSc in mathematics. You tell him, ask your son to fry pakoras. Is that what a parent wants? This is the biggest challenge that India faces, and the budget failed to address that challenge. It had nothing to talk about jobs except cite a private paper written by two private economists, Dr. Ghosh and Dr. Ghosh, who had privileged access to some data of the EPFO which has not been made public so far. But that data has been punctured, that article has been punctured by so many people, and even the Ghoshes are no longer willing to come and defend their paper in a public platform. I wrote about the goods and services tax. It's a pity that the phrase Gabbar Singh tax stuck to that tax. It was, you announced first that India's goal must be GST. At that time, I think very few people in India had even heard of the phrase GST. They knew excise, they knew customs, they knew sales tax, they knew income tax. They had come to accept service tax, grumbling, but they had not even heard of GST. Then we pointed out to them that GST will subsume a whole host of taxes, and that's the way to go. I announced it in the budget speech of 2005. I tried, my successor tried. We failed to get consensus, especially from the opposition, to moving the bill. The bill was moved. We supported the bill. We cautioned the government, please bring a proper GST, and they brought a flawed GST. And we are still going through the pains of that flawed GST. The GSTN network is still fragile and suspect. Traders are still opposed to the e-way bill. There are still multiple rates of tax. There are cesses on top of taxes. And huge disputes are brewing about how to share the taxes, especially IGST. A good idea, because of flawed implementation, has earned a bad name, which is why we are not getting the full benefits of GST. And I had written several columns on the GST. Those who can recall my first speech in Parliament on GST will now accept that the government is moving towards that. I said, have one rate. That's what Arvind Subramaniam said. They said no. And now what are they doing? They are bringing all the rates down to one rate. And the finance minister started speaking about eventually we'll come to one rate. I said tongue in cheek, what Parliament could not do, what common sense could not do, the Gujarat elections did. On the eve of Gujarat elections, they called the GST Council and slashed 200 commodities rates to 12% or 18% or whatever. Then I've written columns about law, Jammu and Kashmir, which I think is still a victim of our short-sightedness. And then I've written about some odd subjects which are grouped at nation at large. My purpose is that we must go back to the days of civilized discourse. You call yourself here forum for public discourse. There is discourse in this country today, except that it is spelt differently. It is D-I-S-C-O-A-R-S-E. Nobody can refute me when I say political discourse has coarsened in this country over the last 20, 25 years. This was not the way political discourse was carried on earlier. Not when I was growing up as a child and I was looking at or reading parliamentary debates. One found very powerful arguments, but no coarseness in the language. The one rule I kept to myself is never use harsh words. I might sometimes indulge in a bit of ridicule and provoking fun, but never use a harsh word. Whatever you want to say, you can say with as much effect by using polite language. You can always make fun, but without some humor, there's no writing, there's no discourse. The greatest contribution to political discourse in this country were not the numerous articles written by learned authors, but the pocket cartoons of R.K. Lakshman. I think one pocket cartoon told what 20 essays could not say. Humor, and he put it in a pithy way. So never use a harsh word. The second rule I told myself is, don't use language which people don't understand. Only my good friend Sashi Tharoor is allowed to do that. He gets away with it. He's a charming fellow. But if I don't understand the word, why should I use it and inflict it upon you? Write in as simple a language as possible, always conscious of the fact that English is not our language. English is a foreign language. English is as much a foreign language to me as it is to you. Some may have greater felicity in English language, some may have less felicity in English language, but English language is a foreign language. So treat a foreign language with respect. Use it as a medium of communication. The third rule is, don't end a column or don't complete a column by simply being critical. You must at the end of it say what you think about it. Otherwise, what are you writing? What is this pontificating? If you think AFSPA is wrong, it's not enough to say that AFSPA is wrong. You must then say how AFSPA wrong can be made right. If you think GST is wrong, it's not enough to say GST is wrong. You must then say how GST can be made right. If you think the neglect of children is criminal, then you must say how that criminal neglect can be corrected. Fortunately, an external discipline is imposed upon a writer. I have a limit of 900 words, so I can't afford verbal diarrhea. I have to say what I have to say in 900 words, and that's a great discipline. It's a great discipline. A discipline which speakers do not follow, but writers have to follow. And writers of columns have to follow. You have to write a column and then start chiseling it here and there to bring it into that 900 words. I followed these three rules. Don't use harsh language, keep the English simple, and try to suggest an answer to the problem. It may not be a complete answer, try to suggest an answer to the problem. And the last rule is, never read trolls. I don't know if you guys have read a book called, what's her name? Chaturvedi. Swati Chaturvedi. She penetrated the BJP's inner circles and stumbled upon two organizations which had paid trolls. Their only business was to troll people. I don't access social media. Even my tweets are sent by me by SMS to my PS who tweets, who operates a Twitter account. So I don't read even the feedback. But I'm told by people who have read it, if you read the trolls, you'll have to ask yourself, are you a sane man? Why are you writing? So they, short of accusing you of insanity and treachery and treason, they are paid trolls. So ignore the trolls, keep writing, and eventually I think people will begin to think. I think, not my writing, certainly not my writing alone, a lot of well-meaning criticism by well-meaning writers. You have Akar Patel writing from Bangalore on human rights issues. You have Pratap Banu Gupta writing on the political economy. You have Shiv Vishwanathan writing on political philosophy, social philosophy. You have Ashok Gulati writing practically every week on the travails of the agriculture sector. You have M.K. Narayanan and our former RAW chief writing on security issues. You have a Shiv Shankar Menon occasionally writing on issues concerning China and Pakistan. I think I can see change in the air. I can see change when people walk up to me at airports, people walk up to me in railway stations, people walk up to me in social gatherings. People are beginning to ask ourselves, what is it happening in India? I think that is the thought at which I would like to leave you. What is happening in this country? The introductory chapter of Arvind Subramaniam's economic survey and paragraph 1.31 to paragraph 1.33 says, in the last 4 years, we have failed to address the three most important challenges that India faces today, namely education and health, agriculture, and employment. That is his words, not mine. Read the introductory chapter and read paragraph 1.31 to 1.33. The three major challenges that India faces are education, including health, agriculture, and employment. If this was a political platform, I'll ask in my own language, if after 4 years in government, you haven't addressed education, health, agriculture, and employment, what the heck were you doing? After 4 years, what the heck were you doing? So people are beginning to ask the question. More and more young people are asking the question, where are the jobs? Farmers are asking the question, what did we get? Obviously they feel poorer, they are poorer, and then the statistics now says they are relatively poorer. The other conclusion of Arvind Subramaniam is, while the schemes were good schemes, and he names 4 of them, Swachh Bharat, Jan Dhan, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya electrification program, and the distribution of LPG as good programs. He says, we have not yet seen tangible, measurable outcomes of the program. Nobody is questioning the intentions of the government or the Prime Minister. I'm sure the intentions are good. But what this proves is, while they are good owners of the program, they are very incompetent managers of the program. Take Swachh Bharat. Sunita Narayanan is researched and proved that over half the toilets are not in use because there's no water, there's no waste disposal system. So what you have built is not a toilet. You have built 4 walls and installed a commode. It's not a toilet because there's no water and there's no waste disposal system. It has led me to conclude that the government of this country cannot be entrusted to ministers and civil servants. There may be some ex-current civil servants here. The government of this country cannot be entrusted only to ministers and civil servants. We must have ministers, we must have civil servants, and we must have competent managers drawn from other walks of life. Look at this joke that is going on. Several districts of Chhattisgarh have been declared open defecation free. ODF, you must have read it. This district is ODF. The Director General of BSF and the Director General of CRPF tell me the Director General of BSF and the Director General of CRPF tell me that some of these districts are barely accessible to the paramilitary forces. If the district is barely accessible to the paramilitary forces, how did this wonderful administrator declare it ODF? Who went and built toilets there? Who installed the commodes there? Who provided the water there? Where is the waste disposal there, system there? And yet you declare the whole district as ODF? That is where we fail. We think that a great idea and a great scheme on paper is also there on the ground. Arvind Subramaniam bursts that bubble by saying there are no tangible results. I mean, he doesn't say no. He says we don't yet have a measure of tangible results. So this led me to conclude that in future, government must have ministers elected, the civil servants who are the permanent civil service, and you must have competent managers for each project. If you want a toilet program to be implemented, you must have a competent manager. If you want LPG gas to be distributed, you must have a competent manager to do that. Without competent managers who can actually manage it on the ground, I mean, we can distribute Coca-Cola in every village. We can distribute Pan Parag in every hamlet. Satya Nadella can manage Microsoft. Sundar Pichai can manage Google. I'm sure we can find managers who can manage these programs. And they will be happy to come and manage it for you. What we fail is, while we are good owners of programs, we are very incompetent managers of programs. And I think the current government is a good example of good ownership but very poor management. Well, I could go on, but I don't wish to continue. Must leave some time for debate here. I have only one message to my audience at the end of every talk. We must be a vibrant civil society. You can have the institutions of democracy, but if there's no vibrant civil society, those institutions are practically dead. Look at the crisis of the judiciary, the highest judiciary. Look at the crisis in the institutions we create. The Information Commission, the Election Commission, the Prasar Bharati. Look at the crisis that comes within each institution. The only way all these institutions can be held to account is not by going to the polling booth once in 5 years, but by a vibrant civil society. A vibrant civil society is marked by debate, and debate means writing and speaking. My appeal to you is, speak. If you have the urge to write, write. If you can't write a column, write a letter to the editor. Well, that's not difficult. Write a letter to the editor. tweet, write a blog, but you have to write, you have to speak. You don't have to speak in a public platform. You can speak to your children of your neighborhood. You can call your child and ask your child to bring 20 children in the neighborhood and speak to the children. Unless society is vibrant, unless there is intense dialogue in society, unless people speak and people write. See, earlier, about 40, 50 years ago, this parikrama around temples serves a number of functions. I discovered it when I was a young child. It didn't hit me then, it hits me now. One, it was your daily constitutional exercise. Secondly, it was a place where you gathered and you talked to each other. You spoke to each other. I think it's very important that people should meet each other. Unfortunately, Facebook seems to be the only meeting place. It's actually a faceless meeting, but the guy has coined the phrase Facebook. You have to meet people, talk to people. More importantly, you must talk to people, not people like us. You must talk to people like people who are not like us. I don't know if I asked this question last time here in Manthan, I've asked it elsewhere. I've asked, well, any audience in a city or any audience anywhere will be largely Hindu. Largely Hindu. I asked it in Kolkata. I said, how many of you can count 6 Muslim friends? Maybe Hyderabad will be slightly different because it's got a strong Muslim population. But if you ask this question in Chennai or in Madurai, or how many people whom I can claim to be close friends who belong to the Muslim community? And then there's an even sharper question. How many of you can claim that you've got 6 friends belonging to the Dalit community? In fact, in another way I can ask, how many of you male guys can claim 6 close female friends? We not only segregate by gender, we segregate by caste, we segregate by religion. We live in segregated, self-constructed small communities. So dialogue must be a dialogue with not amongst people like us, but dialogue with people who apparently are not like us. That is the only way a society can be a vibrant society. My way to reach that society is through writing, through speaking, and I would urge each one of you to find your own way in which you can keep society vibrant. Manthan is a platform which makes for a vibrant society, vibrant debate. I compliment the organizers of Manthan, and once again, thank you very much for giving me this platform to launch and introduce Manthan. Thank you.
Mr. Chidambaram, my name is Satyakar and I'm a professor at International Business School in Hyderabad. And thank you for calling us to speak and speak aloud, and that's precisely what I want to do. One of the key criticisms of the critics of the government, rather critics of the critics of the government, has been that the problems that have been the problems that have been dominating the political consciousness of all of us were not
working? No, I don't think so. This is okay. This is okay. Yes. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So the question I have is, the critics of the government say that the problems that have been kind of dominating our consciousness over the last 60, 70 years were not created on May 26, 2014, when the NDA and Narendra Modi ascended Prime Ministership. They have been investing for a long time, right from 1947. I'll give you one statistic. And this is an oft-repeated statistic of mine. For the next 20 years, every month, 1 million graduates, 1 million youth are going to enter the workforce. We have known this problem for quite some time, for about 20 years, that for the demographic dividend of India, the demographic promise to a demographic dividend. We need very strong education, which does not happen. So my question is, if you are giving us a prescription for better India, why were these prescriptions not converted into policy and policy execution while you were in power?
Did I say that the problems were created on May 26, 2014? I didn't say that. In fact, it is the government which seems to think that everything good in this country started only on May 26, 2014. How do you explain denigrating Jawaharlal Nehru? Can anyone defend the denigration of Jawaharlal Nehru? The point is not that. The point is every government will inherit a certain situation, both good and bad. You have to take it from there and ask yourself, what have you done to improve the situation? That is the only question we are asking. Nobody says there was no unemployment. There was unemployment, some jobs were created. You came into government promising 2 crore jobs. You knew, I knew that was a bluff. But that doesn't matter. Tell us how many jobs have been created. Tell us which sectors jobs have been created. Tell us what kind of jobs have been created. Instead of answering that question, you rely on a private research paper by two, Dr. Ghosh and Dr. Ghosh, who have access to privileged data and claim that 70 lakh jobs were created. I said this in Parliament, those of you who watched my debate. If you correlate the number of jobs created and the decline in growth rate over the last 4 years, you come to the startling conclusion, the lower the growth, more jobs are created. And the answer therefore is to go down to zero growth, so 100% jobs will be created. The question we are asking is not that there was no unemployment before you came, not that you created the problem. Tell us what you have done to create jobs. The same question will be asked of the next government. You should ask the same question of the next government, whoever the government is. And you should ask the same question of the government after that. Until we reach a situation, what the economists call euphemistically full employment. But that question will be asked. But merely because we ask the question, the answer is, oh, there was unemployment before also. What kind of an answer is that? There is no answer. Of course there was unemployment before. You tell us what you have done to create employment.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir. Praveen here.
Into the mic.
CA Praveen Kumar here. Quite happy to meet you today. From 2013 onwards, other organizations were saying that NPS is going to be a problem for India. And in spite of the fact that NPS keep on rising, there is no effective measures taken. And today the NPS touched extremely higher levels of 9 lakh crores, 10 lakh crores. There is many people are saying that we should privatize, nationalize the banks also. So what I feel is that is there any international bankers lobby behind the nationalization of PSU banks also, who is being intentionally for the past 4 years?
But there is a lobby. There is a lobby which wants banking to be in the private sector. In India, there's a very powerful lobby supporting wholesale privatization of the banking sector. But my gut feeling is, and this I go by straw polls, the majority opinion in this country does not favor outright privatization of banks. Read my column tomorrow where I talk about this very subject on banks and bank scam. You can read it online. If you don't read it in Indian Express, you can read it online. The column is now available in Punjabi, Urdu, Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, Malayalam and Kannada. I'm looking for a Telugu paper. I can't find one yet. Ranga promised to get me a paper, find a paper for me. I hope he can, which is why I'm commandeering his car to go to the airport. Now, if that is public opinion, majority public opinion is against privatization. I don't know, I'm just saying my gut feeling is that is the opinion. Then how do you privatize all the banks? The way forward, according to me, is to consolidate among the public sector banks, keep them few. Don't need 21 public sector banks. You can maybe reduce it to 3 or 4 region-wise. State Bank is all India footprint. You can have one in South India, Indian Bank, Indian Overseas Bank, Canara Bank. You can have one based in Bombay, Central Bank, Bank of Baroda. You can have one based in Delhi, Punjab National Bank, Allahabad Bank in Calcutta. Maybe you can consolidate the banks so that you have stronger balance sheets of public sector banks, and then you can go forward. On NPAs, a question I asked, nobody has answered so far, maybe somebody has an answer. On 31/3/2014, the NPAs reported to the RBI and certified by the RBI in its annual report was about 2 lakh crore. I'm giving a ballpark figure, I think it's 1 lakh something. 2 lakh crore rupees. In December 2017, it is about 9 lakh crore. Now what is NPA on 31/3/2014, when we left government? 2 lakh crore means, it means that the remaining loans were being serviced, interest was being paid, and the installments were being paid. There were performing loans on 31/3/2014. If there was a performing loan on 31/3/2014, how did it become a non-performing loan in December 2017? The answer which some people give is, there was evergreening of loans. It was truly a non-performing loan, but since you were recycling the loan, it appeared to be performing. It was a non-performing loan. And my question is, why did the regulator not stop the evergreening? You read my column tomorrow, you will find that there are 7 audits of a bank branch. 7 audits every year. And none of the 7 auditors found it. The bank's external auditor is appointed from a panel approved by the Reserve Bank of India and submits the report not only to the board of the bank, submits the report to the RBI also. Because the RBI did not find it. Therefore, there's some serious systemic deficiency. I'm not denying that the systemic deficiency may have been there prior to 31/3/2014. All that it means is the systemic deficiency is deepened after 31/3/2014. It has become worse. If there was a disease, the disease has become worse. It was the duty of the doctor in charge to make sure that the disease does not become worse and the disease is reversed. If you allow the disease to become worse, then you're not being a good doctor.
Yeah.
Good evening. Mr. Chidambaram will be leaving in a while. Those of you who would like to pick up the books and get them autographed, please do that quickly. Just wait, soon after the question answer.
Yes, sir. India is becoming a nation of defaulters. Why do these defaulters are allowed to do new deals and new companies? By the overt and covert support of the government to the defaulters, is the government in power sending a message to banks not to act against them?
Well, I don't know. What I don't know, I can't say. It's not a nation of defaulters. Please remember, at the worst, your NPA is reported to be about what? 9-10%. Which means 90% of loans are being paid. Why do you call us a nation of defaulters? We are a nation of compliance, 10% are the defaulters. Except that, the bigger you are, the more likely you to become a defaulter. The small chap seems to pay up. See, at least in rural India and in middle class and lower middle class India, what I have observed is, as a cultural trait, not paying a loan is a stigma. As a cultural trait. There are a lot of people who say, I have a loan, I must pay it. You saw that example of Lal Bahadur Shastri's widow who paid the 5,000 rupee car loan through her pension account. As a cultural trait in India, people want to pay the loan. Nobody wants to be known as a defaulter. I don't know, there must be in every language version of the Ramayana, in the Tamil language version of Ramayana, Kamba Ramayana, Kadanpattar Nenjambol Kalanginan Ilangai Vendan. Translated, it means, how did the king of Lanka grieve? He grieved like a debtor. That's the language. Kadanpattar, debtor. Kalanginan, grieved. Who grieved? The king of Lanka grieved like a debtor. Yes.
Hello, sir. I'm Teja, student of law. So, we the youth have many questions about how the government is performing and what are the achievements and what our problems are. So, when we point out and question the truth, what we are asking for is costing us too much. Well, it's costing many people too much, like Gauri Lankesh, when asked about something, was murdered. Or Kunal Kamra, a comedian, was asked to get out of his house because he had a different political view or a dissenting view of the government policy. So it's costing us too much that we can't handle it. We want to talk about it. We want to dissent, we want to argue, but we can't handle what the consequences are. How should we fight it?
We have become a more intolerant society. But the answer to intolerance is not silence. If you are silent, you're actually becoming complicit in the intolerance. Yes, I agree. Gauri Lankesh had to pay a very heavy price. So did Dabalkar. So did Pansare. They did pay a price. Kanhaiya Kumar was beaten in the court, right inside the court, by lawyers. The price you have to pay. But if you don't want to pay the price and you choose silence, you're actually complicit in the intolerance. Wherever you see intolerance, you must speak up. Otherwise, how can it happen that an Aklak is lynched in broad daylight in front of his house by a mob which thinks that he has got beef in his home? And the inquiry was whether he had beef or not. What is the relevance of that question? Whether he had beef or not, he had a right to have it. The inquiry should have been, was the mob right or wrong in lynching him? Look at the Rohit Vemula case. The inquiry committee was to find out whether he was a Dalit or a non-Dalit. The inquiry should have been what drove him to suicide. So we tend to divert the attention to a non-issue, ignoring the real issue. Wherever you see intolerance, you must speak. In your own way you must speak. You cannot be complicit in intolerance.
So I'm Sridhar, I'm a banker with interest in wealth management. You have been India's best loved finance minister, the markets love. What is your view on the LTCG coexisting with STT as canon of taxation?
Not a good idea. Not a good idea. STT was introduced when we abolished LTCG. I have no objection in principle to taxing capital gains of one asset class which is outside the net. At an appropriate time, an LTCG can be justified. The two questions that arises, which I will ask in Parliament when the finance bill is debated. Why now? Is this the time to tax LTCG? Look at what the RBI said. There are 5 taxes on India's capital. India's capital today, if you bring in capital, you have 5 taxes. LTCG being the 5th of them. Is this the appropriate time to introduce LTCG when private investments are not taking place? The second question is, having introduced LTCG, why did you not get rid of STT? The answer is only greed. You wanted more money. Markets are not the exact indicator of economic health. It's an indicator, but that indicator shows that investors are unhappy.
Sir, while we know what is the difference in terms of political ideology between BJP and Congress in terms of Hindutva and secularism, what is the difference between BJP and Congress in terms of approach to economic policy? Like which policies Congress would adopt if it comes to power to create job? And second is, I wanted to ask is about the murder of Justice Loya. So why has opposition taken so much time to raise this issue, and why will how will it raise in the next coming parliament session? And also, yeah.
All right. You see, I think in India, among the political parties, barring the communist parties, there is a consensus that we must have an open economy, a competitive, liberal, open economy. I think there's a broad consensus. The communist parties, of course, believe differently, but that's their right. Once you say you must have an open, competitive economy, market economy, there's a difference between being business friendly and being market friendly. There's a vast difference between being business friendly and market friendly. Business friendly is nothing but the old crony capitalism. Market friendly is encouraging a more open competitive market, so that in that market everybody has a level playing field and the more efficient guy will survive or do better. Congress, as far as I know, Dr. Manmohan Singh and I believe in a market friendly set of economic policies. I think the BJP believes in a business friendly set of economic policies. Listen to my debate in Parliament. I will tell you how many Gujarat specific announcements were made in the budget. I'm happy for the people of Gujarat, but a lot of other states are unhappy.
On Judge Loya, see, frankly, I did not know about the case.
Unless facts come out in the media, in the public space, I didn't know about the case. I had never heard of Judge Loya. I know that he was transferred and another judge came. That's all I know. But now facts are tumbling out. As facts come out, only then debate will pick up. Now I think the debate has reached its peak. Supreme Court judges have questioned the handling of Judge Loya. There's a case going on in the Supreme Court. There will be a debate in Parliament, and perhaps more facts will come out in the debate in Judge Loya's death.
I have two questions.
Yes.
With the success of BJP's hard Hindutva, we see Congress adopting soft Hindutva. Is secularism dead so far as the main political parties is concerned? One. Two.
Well, we'll take one by one.
Yeah.
Secularism is not dead. You see, what has happened is the camera has started focusing on certain things. I come from a rural constituency. I have 3,000 villages. And you know, in Tamil Nadu, there is no village without a temple or a church or a temple and a church. There is no village. In fact, some of the most magnificent temples of Tamil Nadu are in my constituency. When I travel in my constituency, when I get out of the village, the first thing they say is come to the temple. I mean, it's natural. It's like somebody comes to your house, you will ask him or her to sit down and say, will you have a glass of water? Now, drinking water can identify you. The first thing, take it from me, the moment your car stops, I'm coming to this village, I'm stopping at Sashidhar Reddy's village, I go to the village, I stop the car, he will receive me and say, please come to the temple. I mean, that is normal. So far the camera didn't focus on us, mercifully. Now the camera is focusing on this invitation to the temple. It's nothing new, number one. Number two, this country, not my view, this is my assessment of this country is a deeply religious country. The DMK started on an atheist platform. E.V. Ramaswamy Nayakar. His statues still dot all over Tamil Nadu. The 3 lines written on the statue still there. Those who believe in God are fools. Those who worship God are greater fools. And those who something are the greatest fools. That is the word. Kadavulai nambuvan muttal. That is the first line. It's there all over Tamil Nadu. But the DMK has become almost theist now. And the AIADMK is totally theist. It has outgunned every other Hindutva party today. Therefore, this is a deeply religious country. The communists tried, they failed. The Dravidian parties tried, they failed. You cannot go to the people of this country and say, don't believe in religion. You cannot do that. You must accept the fact that this country is deeply religious. Take France. I went to France and I asked the church pastor and all, how many people come to your, how much of your, what is that called? Congregation. No. There's a parish. How many members of your parish come to church? He said 5% come. And average age is over 60 years. But look at every tennis player, every football player, every cricket player has got a cross hanging on his neck. Have you seen that? Yes. Every football player, when he steps into the ground, he'll touch the ground and kiss his cross and go. Every tennis player, look at all these East European tennis players, all these girls, Kvitova, that over, this over, all these names. Everybody has got a cross. But you go to church, they don't go to church. But that doesn't mean they are atheist. This is a deeply religious country. You must respect the religion of the people of this country. And if somebody goes to a temple in the village, he's simply respecting the religion of the people of the country, that's all. It's not an issue of secularism at all.
You ask me, I'll ask one small point.
Please.
What we need today is a true liberal political philosophy. Would Congress adopt a consistently liberal philosophy over the next few years? That is something that would actually be a good antidote to the current extreme right-wing philosophy that exists.
See, my interaction with the next generation of Congress leaders is they are genuinely believe in a liberal economy and a liberal society and a liberal polity. Kinds like Sachin Pilot, Jyotiraditya Scindia, Jitendra Singh, guys in Gujarat, Karnataka, the younger leaders of Karnataka, Andhra. I have found all of them liberal. When we started reform, the opposition did not come from the new generation, opposition came from the old guard. And we were able to overcome it. But I find that the vast majority of younger Congress leaders who have come are highly educated, number one, and they are genuinely liberal. If they are in positions of authority in the Congress, as I think they will be, Congress can't be a septuagenarian party or an octogenarian party. Congress has to hand over reins to the people in the 40s and 50s. I think the Congress will be a liberal party, although I can't say there won't be a stray voice here and there.
Sir, last year we were here, you made a statement on Kashmir which made the impact, saying that we may have almost lost Kashmir.
I think we have.
Yes. So I just want to know, in the last 1 year, as it was?
No, I saw the data only yesterday in my committee.
Number of civilians killed in the last 2017 is higher. Number of Jawans martyred is higher. Number of terrorists killed is higher. Number of incursions is higher. And in the first 50 days of January and February of this year, it is running at a higher rate than last year. Situation today in Jammu and Kashmir, especially Jammu, is actually worse.
Yes. Give him the mic. Yes. Yes.
टाटा इंस्टीट्यूट सोशल साइंस हैदराबाद का छात्र हूँ और अभी हमने देखा है कि रिसेंटली जीओआई जो गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया स्टूडेंट हैं SC ST उनका फाइनेंशियल एड कट कर दिया गया है और पिछले हम 3 दिन से हंगर स्ट्राइक और कर रहे हैं टिस हैदराबाद कैंपस में, और हमारे 4 कैंपसेस हैं, गुवाहाटी, तुलजापुर और मुंबई, हम सब जगह कर रहे हैं। लेकिन अभी तक जैसे हम आप आए कि स्पीक टू पावर, तो स्पीक टू पावर, पर यहाँ कोई है नहीं, किससे कोई हमारी कोई सुनने वाला नहीं। अभी तक कोई नेशनल मीडिया में हल्का छुटपुट आया है। अगर आप हमें हमारे लिए कोई सॉलिडारिटी व्यक्त करें, या ये एक बड़ा हमें कोई माध्यम।
What is your question?
सर हम चाहते हैं कि हमारे बिहाफ पे आप सॉलिडारिटी नेशनल लेवल पर रखें।
अलग से बात करेंगे
जी
No, I understand what he's saying. Somebody must speak for their cause
yes sir
to government. Fine. Remember, in I think the last
budget that I presented, I gave either 50 crore or 100 crore to TISS to set up the Guwahati campus. You would know that. The UPA government gave either 50 crore or 100 crore to TISS to set up the Guwahati campus. I take note of your point. Thank you.
Hello, sir.
All right, okay.
1 minute. He has a 9:20 flight to catch.
7:45 I must be in the car.
And I just noticed that
What?
the road is packed and the car is likely to take at least 55 minutes to reach the airport.
One last question.
All right. Good. Quick question.
So, sir, we have spoken a lot about the internal
challenges and other things. On the other hand, if you see the China, which is world hegemony in terms of one belt, one road, and the South China danger, the occupation.
question.
So, where is India standing? They are sort of influencing Nepal, they're influencing Maldives, they're influencing everything. So, we don't seem to have a counter strategy.
They will. Why do you
Assume that other countries will not try to enlarge their areas of influence. This is a real world. Other countries will try to enlarge their areas of influence. And especially when China sees America retreating, China will try to occupy that space. China's national aim is only one thing, to become number 1 in the world. They will try to enlarge their space. Our government must devise appropriate counter strategies. Now, that is a question which you must put to the government. What counter strategies do you have to Well, it's a complex issue that can't be answered in a single sentence as an answer. But I think counter strategies can be devised, not to counter China, but to enlarge our area of influence. Thank you very much. Thank you all.